Welcome to the 2025 Local Indicator presentation from the Local Agency Systems Support Office at the California Department of Education. My name is Lydia Renteria, and I will be co-presenting with my colleague Ray Dean Girola. Today's session will provide a brief overview of local indicators. For the 2025 dashboard, the California Department of Education is releasing a series of on-demand sessions, which will be short, accessible videos which can be accessed anytime and will cover each of the state indicators in more detail, plus other accountability information such as the local indicator information. Today's session introduces the local indicators within the context of the California State Accountability System. In doing so, the presentation will identify priorities with local indicators, review the State Board of Education, or SBE, adopted local indicator performance standards, introduce the SBE adopted self-reflection tools, discuss the need to consider local indicator data to inform the development of the annual update of the Local Control and Accountability Plan, or LCAP. Discuss general timelines associated with local indicators, describe local indicator performance ratings, and finally, how to go about reaching us with any questions about local indicators. Prior to identifying the priorities with local indicators, it is important to understand the context, specifically California's accountability system. California's accountability system is premised on the following components. First, the Local Control Funding Formula, or LCFF. Next, the Local Control and Accountability Plan, or LCAP. Then, the California School Dashboard, which we will refer to as the dashboard from here on out. And lastly, the system of support. Under the system, LEAs receive funding with flexibility to determine which programs and/or services have the greatest likelihood of ensuring that each student will succeed in relation to each of the LCFF state priorities. In exchange for this flexibility, LCFF requires a greater responsibility for selecting appropriate and effective programs. The LCFF requires LEAs to engage their local educational partners in a planning process to evaluate their progress within each of the applicable state priority areas and to develop, adopt, and annually update a 3-year LCAP using the template adopted by the SBE. Further, the LCAP must include an annual review of the effectiveness of the goals, actions, and services from the prior year. As mentioned before, the LCAP is to address all applicable LCFF priorities. Specifically, the priorities are as follows. Priority 1, appropriate teacher assignment, sufficient instructional materials, and facilities in good repair. Priority 2 addresses the implementation of academic content and performance standards adopted by the SBE, while Priority 3 addresses parental involvement and family engagement. Priority 4 addresses student achievement, and Priority 5 addresses student engagement. Priority 6 addresses school climate. Priority 7 addresses access to a broad course of study. Priority 8 addresses other student outcomes. Priority 9 addresses the coordination of services for expelled students, and this is for COEs only. Priority 10 addresses coordination of services for foster youth. Again, this priority is for COEs only. Also, the LCFF created an accountability system that utilizes multiple measures, which are also referred to as indicators, to inform educators, parents, and the public of student achievement. The dashboard reports performance for both state and local indicators. State indicators apply to priorities in which data is collected at the state level. They are academic indicators, which include measures for both English Language Arts and Literacy, or ELA, and mathematics. The English Learner Progress Indicator, the Chronic Absenteeism Indicator, the Graduation Rate Indicator, the Suspension Rate Indicator, and lastly, the College and Career Indicator. As stated before, state indicators apply to priorities in which data is collected at the state level. On the other hand, local indicators apply to priorities in which data is not collected at the state level. Local indicators are reported based on local data. Local indicators address Priority 1, which is about basic services and conditions, including appropriate teacher assignments, sufficient instructional materials, and facilities in good repair. Priority 2, which addresses the implementation of state academic standards. Priority 3 addresses parent and family engagement. Priority 6, which addresses school climate survey. Priority 7, which addresses access to a broad course of study. And then the last two priorities, 9 and 10, which only apply to county offices of education and address coordination of services for expelled youth and coordination of services for foster youth. Local indicators apply to all LEAs. Note, local indicators do not apply to individual schools with the exception of single school districts and charter schools. In the next section, the requirements for local indicators will be discussed. The requirements for local indicators are outlined in statute and in the SBE adopted Local Indicator Performance Standards, Local Indicator Self-Reflection Tools, and in the LCAP template. The requirements for local indicators originated in statute, which required the SBE to develop evaluation rubrics to assist LEAs in evaluating their strengths, weaknesses, and areas requiring improvement, and assist in identifying LEAs in need of technical assistance and the specific priorities that the technical assistance should focus on. Consistent with the statute, the SBE adopted the Local Indicator Performance Standards, which outline the annual process that the LEA must complete for local indicators, and local indicator self-reflection tools for use. In addition, the SBE adopts the template that is to be used by LEAs. In the next few slides, each requirement will be discussed in more detail. First, each of the local indicator performance standards will be discussed. There are 3 performance standards that LEAs must complete for each local indicator. Performance Standard 1 requires that for each local indicator, an LEA is to annually measure its progress in meeting the requirements of the specific LCFF priority. As an LEA prepares for the process of annually measuring progress for each local indicator, it is helpful to become familiar with the local indicators and the corresponding self-reflection tools, determine what data to collect and how to collect it, if applicable, determine how educational partners can be involved in the self-reflection process to maximize data validity, collect the data, analyze the data, and use the findings to report progress using the self-reflection tools to determine needs and to inform comprehensive planning in the LCAP. Next is Performance Standard 2. Performance Standard 2 requires an LEA to report the results of each local indicator as part of a non-consent item at the same public meeting of the local governing board or body at which the LCAP is adopted. As a reminder, the LCAP must be adopted on or before July 1st of each year. Next, Performance Standard 3. Performance Standard 3 requires that for each local indicator, an LEA is to report results to the public through the dashboard utilizing the state-adopted self-reflection tool for each local indicator. It is important to keep in mind that there is a reporting window during which LEAs must submit their local indicator results to the dashboard. The CDE will annually notify LEAs of the reporting window via the LCFF listserv. LEAs are encouraged to subscribe to the LCFF listserv by sending a blank message to join-lcff-list@mlist.cde.ca.gov. Next, Raydeen will discuss self-reflection tools.
All right, so now that the requirements for the performance standards have been presented, we're going to go ahead and move on to discuss the local indicator self-reflection tools. LEAs are required to use the applicable SBE adopted self-reflection tool to facilitate the annual reporting of progress in the dashboard. LEAs are encouraged to use the self-reflection tools as part of their local indicator report of progress to their local governing board or body in conjunction with the adoption of the LCAP. The SBE adopted self-reflection tools may be accessed on the California Department of Education's local indicator webpage. The link for this page is provided in the note-taking guide. This page includes links to a document that contains all local indicator self-reflection tools, individual self-reflection tools, and frequently asked questions. The local indicator quick guide may change from year to year based on any changes to statute or to policy. As such, LEAs are strongly encouraged to maintain a subscription on the LCFF listserv in order to receive updates regarding local indicators, which include any changes that are adopted by the SBE. So how can the learnings from the local indicator self-reflection process inform the LEA's planning? This question will be discussed in the next several slides. The LCAP requires LEAs to consider performance on the state and local indicators, including their locally collected and reported data for the local indicators that are included in the dashboard, in determining whether and how to prioritize its goals within the LCAP. The learnings from the self-reflection process provide LEAs with a rich set of local data, which can inform the identification of local needs and strategies to address such needs. There are specific sections within the LCAP template that require consideration of local indicators and/or inclusion of local indicator data. For specific information related to the SBE adopted template, including local indicator references within the template, please access the CDE's LCAP webpage. The link to this webpage is provided in the note-taking guide. Now that the requirements for the local indicators have been presented, it's time to discuss the implementation timeline associated with local indicators. As LEAs prepare to implement the requirements related to local indicators, it is important to allocate sufficient time for the LEA to best meet each of the adopted local indicator performance standards. In general, the implementation timeline is as follows: fall through spring, on or before July 1, in summer. In the next 3 slides, each time frame will be discussed in more detail. Fall through spring. In the fall through the spring, LEAs gather and analyze data to evaluate the LEA's implementation in each of the local indicators. During the spring, LEAs also consider their performance and progress in each local indicator as part of the development and annual update of the LCAP. On or before July 1st, LEAs report the progress on each of the applicable indicators as part of a non-consent item at the same public meeting of the local governing board or body at which the LCAP is adopted. As a reminder, the LCAP must be adopted on or before July 1st of each year. LEAs are encouraged to identify where progress has been made and where improvement is necessary to inform the reflections on annual performance that are required within the plan summary of the LCAP. In the summer, the LEA's dashboard coordinator reports the local indicator results and the date of the board or body presentation to the dashboard through the MyCDE Connect system. Once the LEA submits local indicator data to the dashboard, a performance rating is assigned to each local indicator. An LEA that meets all three of the SBE approved performance standards will receive a performance rating of standard met. An LEA that does not meet all three of the SBE approved performance standards for a local indicator will receive a performance rating of not met or not met for 2 or more years as applicable for that local indicator. For further information on local indicators, please be sure to visit the CDE's local indicator webpage, the link for which is provided in the note-taking guide. If the resources that have been provided do not answer your remaining questions, or if you have more questions, as always, we can be contacted anytime and are just an email away. If you have questions about local indicators, please email lcff@cde.ca.gov. If you have questions about the dashboard, please email dashboard@cde.ca.gov. And that concludes on-demand video for local indicators. We appreciate you taking your time to watch this presentation. Thank you.